Ethan Mallory lived alone, and he preferred it that way. His ranch sat at the edge of a wide New Mexico canyon, where the desert stretched for miles and the wind spoke louder than people. Years ago, a fire had taken everything from him, his wife, his son, and his smile. Since then, he had built a life of silence and routine. The land didn't ask questions, and neither did the cattle. Every day was the same. Up at sunrise, feed the horses, check the fences, ride the land, fix what needed fixing. At night, he would sit on the porch with a strong cup of coffee, watching the sun bleed into the desert sky. He only went into town when supplies ran low, and even then he kept his hat low and his voice quieter. But one August evening, something changed. Ethan was riding along the South Ridge when he heard a faint sound. It was soft, almost like a whimper, too quiet to be the wind. At first he thought it was an injured animal, but as he got closer he realized it was a voice, a woman's voice. He slowed his horse and followed the sound into the canyon brush. There, beneath a mesquite tree, lay a young woman. She was on her side, clutching her ankle. Her clothes were torn, her face streaked with dust and scratches. Long black hair tangled with twigs and leaves framed her frightened eyes. Ethan dismounted slowly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You all right?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. She didn't answer. She looked too weak to speak. Ethan knelt beside her and offered his canteen. She hesitated, then took a small sip. Her lips trembled as the water touched them. "Can you walk?" he asked. She tried to move, winced, and shook her head. Her ankle was badly swollen. Ethan didn't ask any more questions. He lifted her carefully into his arms, set her on his horse, and walked beside them back to his ranch. At the cabin, he laid her on the old couch and got to work. He wasn't a doctor, but he knew how to clean wounds and set a sprain. He wrapped her ankle and rubbed in an herbal salve he kept for the horses. She winced but said nothing. For hours, she didn't speak. Ethan didn't push. He left a plate of beans and bread beside her and stepped outside to give her space. That night, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, accented, cautious. "My name is Amaya." Ethan turned from the porch, calm but surprised. "I'm Ethan." She nodded, and silence fell again. But something had shifted, thin, fragile, but real. In the days that followed, Amaya slowly healed. She spoke little, but Ethan noticed her eyes watching everything. She was careful with his things, respectful of his space, and grateful in quiet ways. She cooked with wild herbs she gathered nearby, and Ethan realized he was eating better than he had in years. He learned that Amaya was Pueblo, from a settlement deep in the canyon. She didn't say much about what had happened, but Ethan pieced it together. Men with rifles had come to her village. Strangers. Dangerous. She had been taken, then escaped in the night, wandering the desert until she collapsed on his land. Ethan didn't press her. She would tell him what she needed when she was ready. Still, something in him had shifted. Each time, he saw her grinding herbs in a bowl, or limping out to sit in the golden light, he felt something he hadn't in years. Peace. One morning, Ethan found boot tracks near the north fence. Deep, clean prints. Not his. He crouched, frowning. These weren't ranchers' boots. They were heavy, the kind bounty hunters wore. He didn't tell Amaya, but that night, he cleaned his rifle and set it beside the door. The next day, while Amaya worked inside with mesquite pods and desert sage, Ethan saddled his horse and rode the boundary. He found more tracks, this time leading toward the canyon. Someone was searching. When he returned, Amaya sat on the porch, her face quiet, unreadable. She glanced at the rifle by the door. "You saw them," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Are they close?" She didn't answer. Her eyes scanned the horizon, searching the distant rocks, as if the desert itself might answer for her. "They will come," Amaya said quietly. "They always do." A cold chill ran through Ethan. He had lived through loss and pain, but this felt different. He wasn't just protecting land anymore, he was protecting someone who mattered. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat on the porch, eyes on the stars and the dark desert beyond. Every sound made his hand twitch toward the rifle beside him. At some point, Amaya stepped outside with a blanket. She didn't speak, only draped it around them both and leaned lightly against his shoulder. For a man who had lived in silence so long, her touch was louder than thunder. And in that moment, Ethan Mallory admitted something he had tried to bury. He was falling for her. But he also knew something else. The desert never gave without taking. He feared the price for saving Amaya might be his heart. Morning came cold and heavy. The desert sun rose slow, as if even it feared what the day would bring. Ethan stood at the edge of the porch, rifle loaded, horse saddled. His gut told him this was the day the men hunting Amaya would arrive. Behind him, the door creaked open. Amaya stepped out wrapped in a faded blanket. Her ankles still swollen, but her eyes steady. She felt it too. "I can go," she said softly. "If I leave, they won't hurt you." Ethan turned, jaw tight. "This is my land. If they come here, they answer to me. But I brought danger to your home." "You brought life back to it," he replied. For a long moment they stood in silence, weighed down by everything unspoken. Then Ethan touched her hand gently. "I've already lost everything once. I'm not losing you too." Just before noon they came, 4 riders, dust trailing their horses, wide-brimmed hats low, pistols at their sides, eyes sharp. They moved slow, like men used to being feared. One, tall with a scar across his cheek, rode forward. "You Mallory?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "We're looking for a Pueblo girl, escaped from a government transport. Says here she was being moved to a relocation camp." He held up a folded paper. Ethan didn't care to read it. "I haven't seen anyone." Ethan lied, voice calm. The scarred man squinted. "You sure about that?" Ethan gave a single nod. "You're trespassing." The man smirked, stepped closer. "You really want to protect some runaway girl? She's government property. We're doing our job." Ethan didn't move. "This land is mine. You step off it now." Silence pressed down like a storm. The other 3 shifted in their saddles, hands inching toward guns. Then a voice cut through. "She's not going anywhere." Amaya stood in the doorway, small, wounded but unshaken. Her dark hair whipped in the wind, her eyes blazing with defiance. The scarred man grinned. "There she is." Ethan's rifle came up before thought. A single shot cracked, dust bursting at the man's boot. He hadn't missed, he had warned. "Next one goes through your chest." Ethan growled. The tension snapped. The other men dismounted fast, weapons drawn. Ethan stood unflinching, steady as stone. Then Amaya stepped forward, limping but calm. "I'll go," she said, voice firm. "No more blood." Ethan's head whipped toward her. "Number, you don't have to do this. I won't let them hurt you." She looked at him steady. "I lived in fear too long. I won't let them break what I found here, not you." She turned to the scarred man. "If I come, you leave him alone." The man smirked. "Fine by me." Ethan's heart pounded. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. As the men moved toward her, he raised the rifle again. "She's not going." His voice was low, cold. "She's under my protection. You want her, you go through me." The scarred man narrowed his eyes. "You ready to die for her?" Ethan didn't blink. "I'm ready to kill for her." Something in his voice stilled the desert itself. The men froze. They weren't soldiers. They were mercenaries paid to chase, not to die. Finally, the scarred man backed off, spitting dust. "Not worth it," he muttered. He turned his horse, motioned to the others. They rode away, dust trailing behind them like a broken storm. Ethan stood frozen until the riders were gone, the echo of hooves fading into the horizon. Only then did he lower his rifle. His hands trembled. Amaya was crying, silent tears tracing down her dust-streaked cheeks. She looked at Ethan not just with gratitude, but with something deeper, something like love. That evening they sat together on the porch. "No danger, no more running," Ethan said quietly. "I was ready to give up," Amaya whispered. "I never thought I'd feel safe again." Ethan reached over and gently took her hand. "You gave me something too." Her eyes lifted to his. "What?" He looked at the horizon, glowing pink and orange in the fading light. "A reason to feel alive again." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her. For the first time in years, the ranch didn't feel empty. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Weeks passed. Amaya's ankle healed, and she stayed. She began planting herbs in the dry soil behind the cabin. She taught Ethan how to brew healing teas, how to read the stars, how to listen to the desert's voice. He showed her how to mend fences, ride horses, and fire a rifle straight and true. They never spoke of love aloud, but it lingered everywhere in the way Ethan watched her with quiet awe, in the way she waited on the porch for him every evening. One night under a rising moon, Amaya finally asked, "Do you ever wish things were different, that you hadn't lost what you had before?" Ethan thought for a long time before answering. "No," he said softly, "because if I hadn't lost it, I wouldn't have found you." Amaya smiled through her tears, the moonlight catching her face. In time, word spread through town about the Pueblo woman who lived with the quiet rancher. Some folks whispered, others looked at them with suspicion, but no one dared to challenge Ethan Mallory, not after what he'd done. And those who spent time near the ranch couldn't deny one thing. Ethan smiled now. Sometimes he even laughed. And Amaya, she looked like she belonged. They built a life. Not perfect, but theirs. Years later, people still spoke of the rancher and the Pueblo woman as if they were legend. Some said she saved his soul, and he saved her freedom. Others said they were two broken hearts who found each other when the world tried to tear them apart. But Ethan and Amaya never felt the need to explain. They just lived, they loved, and they watched the desert bloom around them.